And now for 7 Minutes With, which will feature a short interview each month with the leader of a distribution or manufacturing company.
This is Lindsay Konczak, editor of Modern Distribution Management and MDM.com, talking with Jeff Crane, CEO of Lewis-Goetz. How was 2010 for Lewis-Goetz?
Much better. 2010 was a much more prosperous year than 2009 was, obviously. And we did an awful lot in 2009 to stay within the guardrails and make sure that we survived and didn't trip bank covenants. It took 2010 and the recovery that we saw to be able to undo some of the things that we did in 2009. We suspended our 401k match, we instituted pay cuts, things like that. And thankfully, with the end of 2010, we've been able to reinstate all of the things that we did in 2009. So with the depth of the recession, we had to pull more levers and pull them farther and for a longer period of time than we'd ever had to before. But it's obviously what we had to do to survive and make sure we came out on the other side unscathed. So,
what end markets are you seeing strength in right now?
Some of the industries hardest hit in 2009 are the ones that are bouncing back the most in 2010. So you don't hear a lot about the steel industry, but the steel industry was so hard hit in 2009 that the recovery has been in that industry pretty remarkable. Our investments in the energy sector have been paying off. They were actually pretty stable. If there was a relatively stable end market for us during the recession, it was the energy markets. The natural gas expansion. We've got operations now in all of the domestic shale natural gas areas of the country. So that's an important end market for us and one that's growing rapidly.
And where are you seeing weakness in your end markets?
If there's one segment that's still lagging, and this won't come as any surprise, it is the construction sector. We do an awful lot in the aggregate mining for road construction and that sort of thing. So that market still is fairly depressed, and so it's dependent on commercial development, commercial construction.
How has the investment by Audex Group helped you grow in recent years?
As with most private equity firms, their acquisition of us, it was less an acquisition of us than it was an investment in our business plan. And that's what we wanted. We needed access to the capital markets to continue to do acquisitions. At the time, we were $200 million in revenue. We had about, I think, 50 locations throughout the U.S. and Canada, maybe a little bit less than 50. And so now we're 80 locations, and we'll do about $340 million in sales this year. So the thesis behind their investment was to give us access to the capital to continue to do acquisitions in this space and to consolidate what remains a very fragmented industry. So, in that regard, they've been a great partner in terms of giving us the resources that we need. They don't manage us day in and day out, which is what we wanted, and they don't want to manage us day in and day out. They really are investing in the management team that was already in place and the business plan that we'd already been executing for years and years. So it's been very successful. They've been a great partner, particularly. We wish at this point we were further ahead, but nobody anticipated the downturn in 2008 and 2009. So I always say you learn a lot about your partners, your friends, your family during the worst of times, and they were a great partner throughout the downturn.
I've spoken to a lot of distributors who are interested in making more acquisitions, and they're interested in finding a partner like you guys have found.
Right.
I mean, any thoughts or advice or for some of those companies who are looking for a partner?
My advice would be look at what your needs are. I mean, if it really is identifying your needs for long-term growth and what best fits that bill. For us, accessing the private markets at that point was absolutely the right thing for us to do, and it's worked out great. If access to capital is a thing that these distributors are looking for to do acquisitions, the private equity universe, and I'm not an expert on it by any stretch, but from what I understand, that's healthy again, and money is being spent, and lending is taking place again. So the private equity universe is sort of back in the game and able to play, and they were sitting on the sidelines for 18 months.
It sounds like you're continuing to plan to be active on the acquisition front.
Yeah.
What are your goals?
We operate in a very focused product niche. We provide fabricated industrial rubber products, and that really fits into three buckets. It's hose, conveyor belt, and gaskets and sealing products. In that space and in that the universe of people that provide those products, it's made up of literally thousands of different distributors across North America. Many of them family owned, many of them with owners that are nearing retirement. They don't have an exit plan, they don't have a succession strategy, and their options are somewhat limited. They're too small to attract private equity, and they don't necessarily want to sell to the other strategic options that are available to them because they don't know the product niche the way we do. So we can come in and talk to those owners, frankly, in a very similar fashion to the way Audax spoke to us. We're not there to acquire the company and put a Lewis-Goetz stamp on the roof and a sign in the front and change the way they go to market. We know what they fight every day. We know the problems that they face because we're operating in the same product space and buying from the same vendors, trying to solve the same problems in the marketplace. So we can come in and say, look, we don't want to change what you're doing. We want to help you. We want to give you resources to do what you do. We know we're going to learn things from you. We hope you can learn things and gain some advantage from being a part of us.
And finally, what keeps you up at night? What is front of mind for you right now? What are the key issues?
What really does keep me awake at night is making sure that in all the different touch points that our vendors have with us and all the different touch points that our customers have with us, we're delivering a consistent message. And there's so many touch points, that's a real challenge. Making sure that, to use an obvious example, you've got a national account with a dozen locations. You want to make sure that all of the outside salespeople, inside salespeople, branch management, region management on the West Coast are saying to that national account the same things that we're saying to them at their operations in the Gulf Coast or on the East Coast, and that message is consistent with the message we're sending them at the corporate level. That's a real challenge, and it takes great communication skills at every level of our organization to be able to communicate that consistent message. We recognize it as a key challenge. We recognize it as a vitally important part of communicating that value proposition, and so we spend a lot of time thinking about it, talking about it, and making sure that people understand what we should be saying and should not be saying to customers, vendors, internal associates about our strategies and how we're executing them. So in my mind, that's the biggest challenge of a fragmented organization, is how do you make sure that the messages are consistent, internal and external. It's an important challenge for us, and one that we try and hit head on.
And that concludes the 7 Minutes With segment with Lewis-Goetz CEO Jeff Crane.